Well, hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and I'm here with Monica. Hi, Monica.
Hello.
We are doing a success story for her daughter who was, I guess we started sleep training she was fif-
She was
15 months,
15 months old when we started sleep training, yeah. Or
15 months old.
when we started the process, I'll say.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start at the beginning. What was life like before you called me and why you called me?
So, yeah, we life was just kind of a slog. We were we had she would not sleep unless she was sleeping on us. Even when she was sleeping on us, it seemed like it was getting harder and harder to get her to sleep, to get her to stay asleep. So, so nap times, you'd fight to get her to sleep. It'd take, it'd be 40 minutes to an hour of like rocking, bouncing, walking, maybe eventually get her to sleep, maybe not. It just depends. And then you'd have to sit there holding her for the next, however long she slept, which sometimes wasn't very long, 30, 40 minutes sometimes.
Mhm.
And then nighttime, she also wouldn't sleep unless she was being held. And so, my husband would take her for um, until about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd get up. My alarm clock was 1 o'clock in the morning. That was the my getting up time for the day, and I'd take her at one, and then I'd keep her until he could, give me a break after work, so I could go get sleep for 4 or 5 hours and get up and do it again.
Okay, so I want to kind of paint this picture for you guys. All right. So mom was completely nap trapped in the daytime shift with a child that needed 2 naps a day. So she fought for a nap in the morning and then was nap trapped in the room with the baby the whole time the baby had to be in arms. And then she'd roll into the second nap and fight to get the nap to happen and then have to be in arms with the baby in the dark room.
Hmm.
So Miss Monica was not out and about.
No.
Miss Monica wasn't getting anything done and she had no personal time.
There was, and forget about being out and about in the world. I couldn't get out and about in the house to like do dishes or anything.
Exactly. Because then when bedtime came around, yes, you got a little bit of a break because dad took the shift from bedtime until 1 a.m., but she had to be in arms in the dark room in a person's arms to go to sleep and stay asleep. If they tried to
Hmm.
transfer her, she would not go. There was no transfer opportunity at all. So you
Hmm.
guys just got into the point where you're like, all right, well, I'll hold her until 1 a.m. And then you would come in and do this, a little transfer to Monica's arms. And then Monica would be in the big chair holding her the rest of the night. And then
Hmm.
dad would come in and take her in the morning and feed her breakfast. So mom,
Actually, no, I just because he only got 5 or 6 hours of sleep, so basically I just had to keep going until
you
he
had to
got off
keep
work.
going until you
Yep.
got off work. Yeah. And then she was
And
back to being nap trapped. So it was a severe situation.
mhm.
It was one of the most severe situations of a child just relentlessly needing a parent at every segment of onset of sleep and every arousal all night long.
Mhm.
And so when Monica landed at my doorstep, I was like, all right, there's something else going on here besides just a child with broken sleep. So do you want to talk about kind of that experience of seeking help and what led from, you know
Yeah, so she had difficulty with sleep and a lot of crying from early on in, with all of it. And so, and our doctor, our doctor honestly just told us, well, some babies just cry. And that was her response to it. And so it makes you kind of feel a little bit hopeless as far as like being able to figure it out or be able to do anything. Cause that was a lot of it too, especially in the early months, is there was a lot of crying as well, trying to help her with everything. And so we actually talked to it at 4 months originally, just because we were just, you know, so tired and so just not getting much progress or anything. And you were the first one that was like, kind of went through some of the stuff from the intake and everything else and was like, it sounds like there might be some reflux going on. And you went through the list of symptoms. Was not that you were diagnosing anything, but saying if this is a thing, this is kind of the next steps you might need to take. And so that was the first part. And it turns out, yeah, she definitely has reflux issues. And for us it was quite a while of dealing with that just because she had several different things going on for the reflux, and it took us a while to kind of get all of that
Mhm.
figured out. And
Yep.
then we were hoping once we got the reflux figured out that maybe she would just kind of start sleeping on her own, because
Mhm.
occasionally, especially earlier on, she would sleep in the crib for, a couple hours here and there. Um, but that's not what happened by the time we got the reflux and stuff figured out. She just was getting to a point. I think part of it was she had just learned not to sleep in the crib because she just didn't get much of an opportunity since she was having so much reflux.
Mhm.
But then we also noticed that her sleep quality just kept getting worse and worse. So I think she was about a year old. So I guess it was actually maybe 12, 13 months when we kind of got back in touch with you again, and started talking. And then he had a whole bunch more questions for us before we started sleep training.
Yes. And what we discovered was baby girl had low ferritin, and low ferritin is the iron storage, how the body uses the nutrients it receives and metabolizes and creates iron storage. It is very different than iron levels. When you think of iron levels and anemia, it's different. First, you have to have ferritin, which is your iron storage, and then that transfers into how it's being used. So, her, and we know that if a child has low ferritin under 50, their sleep cycles will be dramatically compromised. And so all of a sudden it was like, let's go get her ferritin changed or checked. And what was her number?
I believe it was 25.
Yeah, so she was 25 when anything below 50 means compromised sleep cycles. So then it was like ding 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 ding. Now wonder this child needs to be held at every single sleep cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
it was such a relief because it was like, all right, well, this is solvable, right? Like we now
Mm-hmm.
have a medical condition that is inhibiting her capacity to sleep well. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean, because before then it was like, oh, this baby, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, what did you think? I mean, were you like, oh my God, my baby's never going to sleep, or she's just a bad sleeper? Or had you been kind of perceiving her?
So what I mean, I think I saw, because I would see every once in a while when she didn't seem like she was hurting or didn't seem like she was having a hard time, that she actually did have some good sleep. So it just felt like there was something more that we could do. I think it'd
Yeah,
be easy
right.
to tell that story that she's not a good sleeper, but it was just like, I don't think that's what it is, you
That it was
know?
something deeper than that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So the reason why I really wanted Monica to come on and talk about her story is that, there's behavioral modification, which is what sleep training is. And then there are medical conditions that can inhibit the sleep cycles. And unless you look at all the potential medical conditions that can inhibit, you can't even do sleep training. So the
Mm-hmm.
first time Monica came to me, it was like, okay, wait, let's make sure there's no medical conditions. Oh, we've got reflux and we've got a tongue tie. Okay, let's go manage that. Okay, great. Now let's come back and reevaluate. Is she ready? Let's double check. Let's double check our little list. Oh, ferritin. Okay, now we
Mm-hmm.
got to get the ferritin up. And then once we got the ferritin up, then we were in a position to do the behavioral modification.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, worked slow and steady. And so maybe you could talk about what that experience was like to work slow and steady over the course of about 6 weeks to help her learn her skills.
Well, I mean, even before we started with even before the 6 weeks started, or I'm trying to think exactly timeline wise, but I mean, even just finding the ferritin and getting I think it was within, like, for us, I know it varies for people. So, but for us, once she started getting some good, um, better iron supplementation, it was like 3 or 4 days, and we started to notice that instead of being super restless, even when we were holding her to sleep, or, I was having, um, right before the iron, it seemed like she would wake up and be awake for an hour and a half to 2 hours each night, even with me trying to hold her and rock her back to sleep. And so within just a few days was starting to have the iron, we noticed that she was actually having times where she would sleep fairly still in one position. I mean, we were still holding her, but she was
Yep.
sleep fairly still in one position, which was huge. And again, I feel like I feel like our doctor and stuff was helpful, but they don't do sleep all day every day, and so they didn't have kind of the background to, so even when they saw the ferritin, they were like, "Oh, it's okay, it's not terrible," because they don't, again, they didn't have that background to say, "Well, it's got to be 50 to have the sleep cycles and stuff," and that's, but she was supportive and helped us get there. But I will say that you were the one that even helped us find the iron that she would take, because she was not excited about anything with any kind of flavor to it whatsoever, even though there were some that tasted, I mean, I tasted them, they tasted fine, but it wasn't until you found a tasteless one, and that's where she really was, we got a lot farther there. But yeah, then once we started, I mean, I will say the first night of sleep training was not good. I mean, and again, that's just like, it wasn't that it was the wrong thing, it just was hard. Um, but you were there for like every, like, okay, as we start the process, here's what to expect. And so we expected that first night was not going to be good. Here's how like, here's where we can go with it. But what I really appreciated, I think, was, it's like we started based on where she was in that moment. But then as we did each check in, it would be really checking in with how she was doing, how we were doing, and then also kind of looking at, okay, well, here's kind of the next steps we need to take, but is it going to work better for you and where your family is right now to do this? And, where she is to do this or to do this. And so there were always a couple of different options to look at so that we could kind of see, what was best for her. Which was huge because I think there's just different things that work better for different people, and just where
Yeah.
and how things are going in each moment.
Yeah. So everything I do is really customized to the family. So
Mhm.
the reason why, I do lots of check-ins, right? So I talk to you on the day that you're starting your actual sleep training. I talk
Mhm.
to you the night after, and then the second night after, and the third night after, and the fourth night after, because all we have to do is look to see what's working for the child and make the appropriate adjustments just for that one day.
Mhm.
Then we can evaluate how that was and then make the next adjustment. And in the adjustments, we're always looking at what the child is showing their readiness for. And I'm
Mhm.
checking in with the parents to see what their readiness is. So there's
Mhm.
this very, very delicate balance between what the child is showing readiness for and what the parents have the bandwidth or capacity
Right.
do. And so it's not cookie cutter at all. It's very, very customized, and it's very real time customization, because it's based on the data from the night before. And I know that with, a complex case with your daughter where there had been a lot of medical conditions, we had to go slow and steady because
Mhm.
still waiting for the ferritin levels. We got them up to about, as close to 50 as we could before we started coaching, but we were still waiting for we were waiting to see how well her sleep cycles would consolidate whilst
Mhm.
and that's why we went really slow and steady because we had to keep monitoring all these different factors.
Right. Well, but
Um,
that was another I was gonna say that was another thing that I felt like you really worked with us as a family too, because I think that if we were gonna wait for the ideal time for the ferritin, we might have waited another week or two, for the sleep training, but we were also just like, we were so exhausted and just getting so to the end of our rope that it was like, well, let's go ahead and start. Let's see what we can do. And that, and it was also really helpful for me too, because when you're that exhausted, everything new is overwhelming, to know that each day we're going to kind of check in, and okay, we only have to worry about this day and what we're doing right here, and then the next thing, versus having, some big plan that we have to figure out all at once.
all at once. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So like that's my whole motto is small incremental sequential steps based on the child's readiness and the parent's bandwidth will ultimately get us to where we want to go. And in the
Mhm.
case of Monica and her family, we got there in 6 weeks, which is astounding considering that there was so much medical stuff inhibiting our progress, not even inhibiting, where we're kind of behind the scenes, um, that then once they started to clear, it created this new opportunity for the learning to come online. And that's what's just so
Mhm.
beautiful about your story is that no, no, like people often say, I don't have hope. There's no way someone could help me. There's no way, especially a woman like on the internet. Like I'm in California and you guys are like in New Mexico or
Colorado, yeah.
Colorado, okay? And so it's kind of like, okay, yes, you can be helped. Anybody that's hearing Monica's story, if Monica and Tom can be helped, you can be helped. Okay, so mom, what does life look like now? Like what is her sleep cycles look like now?
Well, I mean, I will say that we are right now having a conversation while she's taking a nap, and I'm not stuck in a room with her, and she's just sleeping well in her crib right now. To date, she still has opinions sometimes about being left in the crib, but today I put her down and she just started playing and then went to sleep fairly quickly, and it was, um, I mean, it doesn't always go quite that
Yeah,
sweetly, but
yeah.
she still will go to sleep on her own. We can put her down to bed. And, she's usually ready really early, and we put her down to bed, and we have usually about 11 hours. She'll sleep 10 and a half to 11 hours, but she'll usually stay in her crib for another 20 or 30 minutes after that before she's fully awake and ready to get up. And I usually go in, we turn the light on, and she'll start. She's almost 18 months old, but she'll tell me morning when I come in.
Isn't this
So.
amazing? Okay, so let me just paint this picture to you, okay? Monica is able to have this conversation because her baby's sleeping in the middle of the day and she got to do a hands-free nap, meaning put her in the crib, walk out the door, she can hear her
Mhm,
giggling and talking to herself, and the kid falls asleep and stays asleep. Then in the evening, put her in the crib, walk out the door, 10.5 to 11 hours reliably every single night, then wakes up
mhm,
in the morning and is happy in her crib, so much so that she can hang out for 20 or 30 minutes playing and talking to herself before mom has to go in. Did you
mhm.
ever think this was possible, mom?
No, we were hoping that it would be possible for us to get some sleep, but just the idea of having her reliably sleep overnight, um, that felt out of out
Yeah.
of range, really.
And the baby wakes up well rested and says good morning. I mean, it just
Yep.
is like it's like a Hallmark card. It's so good, right?
Yeah.
So yes. So what has become possible for you or the household now? Like what are you dreaming of now that you're well rested? Like
Yep.
that's maybe something else you can talk about is kind of like how your sleep debt is clearing.
Yeah, so I mean the first couple of months when she started sleeping, like we were happy about it, but it was hard to like truly celebrate because we were just still so exhausted. Like we were finally getting sleep, but you'd wake up and feel like you really still hadn't had sleep. And so now we're just starting to get to that point where it's like, oh, I can actually wake up and feel like I have bandwidth and everything to do stuff. And it it is interesting that things do start to feel more possible. We're starting to do more of taking her to the library and going to the park and just meeting friends to go eat lunch or something. I remember when we were in the middle of the just being up all night and all of that. I remember a couple of people who told us, "Well, you should get her out more often," and I just wanted to smack them because like we couldn't do anything because we were so tired. And it now it's kind of easy to go out. I mean, as easy it is as it ever is with a toddler to go out and do things because we're getting enough sleep that's actually easy. We can actually do a few things around the house that are not just trying to get laundry and dishes done before we have a health hazard, and
Yeah.
that's it. And I can actually work on trying to regain some strength and all of the back and hip stuff that I started getting because of sitting in a chair for hours every
Mhm.
night and hours every day.
Mhm.
I can finally start to work on that and move better. And I always before she was born, I was always I enjoyed hiking and stuff, and now haven't quite figured out how to get all that back in there, but I know that we can get back
Coming.
to some of that. Yep.
Yeah, spring is coming and the sleep
Mhm.
debt is clearing and you guys are already feeling more
Yeah.
vitality and more energy and more possibility. I mean, you said that you guys had a great Sunday this Sunday that you went to church, then you got really groovy and were like, go to brunch and
Right.
let's go to the playground too.
Yeah.
And you were
Yeah.
still home in time for nap, and you were like,
Well, we went to the yeah, we went to brunch, took a nap, and then left
"Woo,"
again to
and
go
then
to the park.
see?
Yep. Yep. Well, and then the other thing too is because my husband and I were just we had to be on shift so much. I
Mhm.
mean, basically we were on shifts and we never really saw each other that much. And, now, in the evening we actually have a chance to chat and catch up ourselves and, you know, all of that stuff. So,
All that simple stuff is
mhm.
what makes daily life better living and
Yes.
definitely in a better living zone now. The baby's sleeping, well rested. You guys are clearing your sleep debt. You
Mhm.
have more time for each other and for yourself. And now you can start doing family outings.
Mhm.
It's like that. It seems like so simple, but it's like it's such a game changer when it happens because that was not
Yes.
your life at all before. It
Yeah.
was two separate worlds, day shift, night shift, each parent with a baby all day, all night. It just no free
Mhm.
time, no hands-free time at all. No hands.
Right. Right.
Okay, so what if you met a family that was sleep deprived and overwhelmed? And they were either afraid to call for help or didn't know where to start or had assumptions and negative assumptions about sleep training. Having gone through all of this and worked with me, what would you want them to know now?
Well, I think one of the things that I would want people to know is because I think there's just kind of I don't know, it's almost like, there's a lot of parents who kind of seem to just think that, well, the fact that sleep is not going well, that's just part of life of being being a new parent or whatever. Um, and yeah, I suppose maybe a little bit, but not to that level, not to that degree.
Mm,
And when you are having sleep debt at the point where it's affecting your ability to interact with your family, to interact with your child. And I think too maybe there's some shame in thinking, well, we should just be able to figure it out, or we should just be able to do what needs to be done, um, I wouldn't want anybody to have those kinds of thoughts to keep them from doing something about it because um, I mean, I know for us, the reason that we started looking for you or looking for someone looking for help was that we're like, we don't even know where to start.
mhm.
And we don't know how long to try to keep going. And we didn't have any bandwidth to try to figure it out. And so, I mean, I would want somebody to say, let's I'd want somebody to know that, there are people out there who can help you kind of figure out the step by step when you don't have the bandwidth to figure out the step by step. And that even when it seems impossible, there are improvements that can happen and big improvements that can happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I so much appreciate it. And I think you get to now officially join the well-rested family revolution.
Yes.
That's what I say that when families work with me, they're in a very new club called the Well Rested Family Revolution. And I just appreciate you trusting me and allowing me this privilege to bring you guys into a whole new way of living so that your child is getting all their sleep needs met for their own growth and development. And you personally are getting your sleep needs met so you can be the mom and have the family life that you always dreamed of. So
Well,
thank
and I mean, I can't say thank you enough both for, the changes that it's made, but also it was hard to find much support, as we were going through trying to figure out all these different things. Again, there's a lot of well-meaning people out there, but they were just kind of like, well, I don't know. They just kind of threw up their hands and to have somebody who was like, no, I can help you and here's, I can help give you some of the step by steps like that was huge. It just, really helped us out. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.